Alright, welcome back guys. So, I'm gonna go ahead and show you my deck list for my Nekroz Dogmatika deck. And it's not a super competitive deck, but it is really fun to play. It's one of the more challenging decks to play, I think. And yeah, I'm gonna show you what my deck list is. And yeah, it's very capable of winning a lot of games. Right now, I think I'm almost gold. I've lost maybe 2 games out of like the 20 or so I've played so far. Granted, it's the early stage of the game, and so a lot of people haven't really grinded out as much. And I grinded out this game quite a bit, so have a lot of like rare and powerful cards that some of the newer players might not have. But it's a fun deck. It basically you are very strong against any I would say any exceeds extra deck monster type decks. So like pendulums, you're good against tri brigades, good against uh was it Sky Circus pretty popular, and even okay against like Shaddolls and stuff like that. So yeah, the deck is pretty capable. Um, kind of let's say inconsistent, but definitely because you are this deck is a ritual deck, so you know rituals are inherently one of the weakest mechanics in the game in terms of summoning, because you need you need at least 3 cards to ritual summon one thing, so you're usually minusing yourself 2 cards to summon something, so that's not really good. But with the OCG meta, it opens you up a lot of different, I guess, staples in order to kind of help mitigate those losses, namely in the form of Max C. And the fact that this deck, in general, likes to go second, and so for the most part, you're gonna need every bit of advantage you want to get going second. Going first is great too, but going first, I find that the deck is a little weak on the board occasionally. This deck is more of a board breaker, kinda. Is the fact that Unicore, once Unicore resolves, he'll negate practically everything on the board, and you should be able to kind of break their board because it'll be uncontested. So yeah, Unicorn kind of acts as your droplet, acts as your Dark Ruler no more, if you can resolve Unicorn against most of the meta game. Now it's quite weak to really big beater decks, I guess, because our strongest monster in the deck is Trishula, this one right here. And so if we can't out a threat with Trishula, we're gonna have a sort of a hard time dealing with it. Um, there are a couple of ways we can out big monsters. We do have a lot of destructions in the deck, and we have a lot of ways to kind of generally deal with that. If it's a monster that's an extra deck monster, then we don't have an issue. If it's a monster that's like a normal monster or an effect monster that's just big in general, then that's where we run into issues with. If it's just an effect monster that's from the extra deck, we can always get rid of it with Brionac, or you know, just negate its effect with Unicorn and get rid of it some other way. But yeah, if it's something that's really big, out of the box, we have a hard time dealing with it. Our other big beater would be Dogmatika, Ferdilis, yeah, which can buff itself up when it attacks, so it can become a 3k beater. Kind of helps you out there, but you won't always see this, and this won't always come up, so you can't really rely on that to beat over most things. So yeah, let's go ahead and go over the deck list, and I'll kind of talk about it. It's very similar to my real life deck. I don't think I've made a deck profile on my Nekroz in real life because I'm still kind of testing out some cards and haven't really got to play it in the TCG as much. But in the OCG here, I think it's a little bit easier to build a deck because you got the 3 Max Cs obviously here. So the 3 Max Cs is what you really need, kind of a staple in the format. You always want to play it when you can. So yeah, triple Max C. We have a Cyber Egg Angel, and this is for the combo for the deck. And the combo is essentially you would summon out Diviner, dump a Herald, search for a Brionac, dump Brionac, search for Colossus, dump Colossus, search for a Cycle, use Cycle, bring back the Brionac by sacrificing the or attributing the diviner here. When you tribute the diviner has an effect. Can special summon any fairy type from the deck, or any, I think, level 2 and lower fairy types, or whatever. So you would special summon Egg from the deck. Egg would search out uh, Ritual Sanctuary. Ritual Sanctuary, then you can use it to either bring back a diviner if you have 2 or more spells in the deck, or you can use Ritual Sanctuary's first effect to kind of search out another ritual card that you might need. There's 2 prime targets for this, so any of the ritual spells that you might need, and the other prime target would be White Knight of Dogmatika here, because it is a it is a light type ritual monster, so you can search it out with Ritual Sanctuary here. So that's kind of the combo. So you set up to be able to bring out have a Brionac on board. If you did revive the Herald, you can synchro the Herald and the Egg into an actual Herald of Arclight, because it's just too, because Herald's a tuner and this is not a non-tuner, so they make a level 4 synchro, so you can bring out Herald of Arclight there, and then you can, whatever you search off of with Ritual Sanctuary, depending on your hand, you can also sit on another White Knight Dogmatika, or you can also summon out a Unicorn perhaps, or if you want to, you can synchro away the Diviner and the Brionac, and you can bring out Omega. There's a million paths you can go with this deck. It just depends on your situation and the type of cards in your hand. And so what this is the why I like that Nekroz so much, is because it's a very non-linear deck. Back then it was more linear, but nowadays it's like you can go different branches, because you're mixing a couple of different archetypes together, so you have a lot more non-linear plays. But your ceiling is a little bit, I would say your ceiling is high, but the consistency is a little bit lower. It's a lot harder to pilot and correctly predict which situation is going to be the best, or what your end result is, end result board is going to be the best. But ideally, there's a couple combos and stuff you can kind of play around with to make the deck function. So that's what the Egg is for. Sorry, I kind of went on a long digression there, but I think it's important to understand what each of these cards do and how they work with each other. So yeah, that's my explanation for the Egg. The problem with the deck is sometimes we draw a brick hand, and that happens. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, whether you play a tier 1 deck, sometimes you'll brick with just a bunch of hand traps or something like that. It happens. You know, there's no mulligan in the game. Just play it as is. Play as what you can with your hand. So the next best card in the deck is going to be, well, this is not best card, but after Max C, this is pretty much a staple in the deck here, Diviner. So Diviner does a lot for the deck. It is an answer, it is a searcher, it is a combo enabler. What I mean by an answer is, if you need to kill something on the board, you can summon her and ditch an Entis, and Entis will literally pop anything. It'll hit a back row, hit a monster, hit whatever you need to deal with. Diviner is an answer, so that's why we don't really play any back row removal. We don't really play anything that or, you know, no Regeki, no Lightning Storm, nothing really, because Diviner kind of does that. On top of that, our deck has a tendency to break sometimes, so we don't really want to play too many Lightning Storms or evenly match. Even though this deck does like to go second, you can tutor this deck to go second more. I guess then the Lightning Storm and evenly match is a little bit better, but I think this is generally kind of like a build that's in the middle. Like it's okay going first, and it's okay going second. I still like going second with the deck, mainly because if I play Trishula, I like going second. But that's me. If you don't play Trishula, then you can probably make this deck going first more, and it'll be better. Next off, we have 2 Ash. I didn't want to play too many because it will clog up your hand in some circumstances, but you do want to draw more interaction. If you have a Maxi and an Ash in hand, this is a good go second hand. Going first, you obviously don't want to see a Maxi and Ash going first, because then you're not going to really have you only have 3 cards to work with. So that's kind of the trade-off there. So just be careful about playing too many hand traps. I think Nekroz is one of those decks that cannot afford to play too many hand traps and interaction, because it's, you know, you only have so much room, and you need your rituals and your monsters in your hand in order to ritual summon and stuff like that. And that's just the inherent weakness of a ritual archetype. So, depending on how you build this deck, just be careful how many hand traps and stuff like that you do add into the deck. Next off, what works really well with deck is Dogmatika. So Dogmatika is another engine that helps us to generate advantages and to provide some answers and support for the archetype in general. We don't really ever use our extra deck to summon. We rarely do any sort of synchro summoning or link summoning. There are a few times that we do, and then I'll explain that a little bit later, but for the most part you don't ever summon with your extra deck, so you can always use her effect to search without any issues. You can't always special summon her because you don't really have a link monster or an extra deck monster on the board to use her special summon ability, but that's fine. She still generates advantage. Her main targets are going to be either your other engine here. Technically Maximus is really good for this deck because, you know, if you search it out and you play Maximus, then great. You can push yourself further ahead. If your opponent is playing something like a Shadal deck or like a mirror match, like a ritual deck, then you might not want to activate Maximus. But if you know that they're not playing anything that, you know, relies on their extra deck to do anything, or, you know, their extra deck, if they're sending stuff from the extra deck to the graveyard, if it's not going to activate, then it's safe to play Maximus and activate him. So he's definitely a good card in the deck. Another search target is Felice. Felice is just like a I guess a effect bearer with legs attached to it. So it only works when there's an extra deck monster on the board. We don't really have an extra deck monster on the board, so we can't always consistently just summon it. We kind of rely on our opponent to have an extra deck monster on the board and able to summon Felice. So that's why I only play one copy. Any more than that, I think you would brick with this deck real badly if you try to play more than one. Because yeah, like I said, we have no way of actually summoning this thing unless our opponent is playing an extra deck monster on the board. Next off, we have the Nekroz package. Two Colossus, triple Unicorn for sure, triple Brio, and one Trishula. So we're not playing any Valk. Valk is still a good card, I guess. Like, you can protect yourself with it. You can use it to tribute off dead cards in your hand. But at the same time, it's hard to summon if you are gonna summon it, and one turn negation for battle doesn't really help all that much, I wanted to say. And it also kind of breaks your hand sometimes, so I opt not to play any of the Valk. I am playing the one Trishula because I am playing a mirror. What I like doing in this deck is going second and able to Trish people going second, which is really nice. Like, generally, Trishing someone one time, maybe twice in the game is usually a good way to close out the game already, and it's one of your ways of getting a big beater. I do like playing one of each of the mirrors, at least a minimum one of each mirror. Oftentimes you can just recycle them with your preparation of rites, so you don't need more than one copy. And it's just another way to summon multiple ritual monsters onto the board. And yeah, like, your main way is using Kaleidoscope for sure to bring out Unicorn. But there are times where you have like extra Nekroz monsters in the deck or in the grave that you want to summon. You can just use like Mirror to bring out one in your hand and just banish one in your graveyard to summon one of the Nekroz. I don't think you can banish Brionac to summon Brionac, but you can at least summon these other small stuff, or Trishula, because usually you'll banish Trishula, you'll use Colossus and Brio in the graveyard to banish to summon out the Trish. The other ritual monster we're playing is the White Knight. White Knight is pretty good in the deck. As you can kind of see, he's pretty easily to be searched. What's cool about him is you can Nadir search, dump a Herald and search him. So basically, a Nadir is almost a one card White Knight summon. Unfortunately, Nadir is only at 1 in the format, which makes this deck a little bit weaker, but it's still a very playable deck. I would like it to be at 3 like in the TCG, but yeah, we only have 1. But we still have other ways of getting card advantage through max C and through prep here, so it's not the worst. So I think it's still worth playing the Dogmatika White Knight here. Obviously, you got 3 preps. Best card managed card in the deck outside of Nadir. But yeah, Nadir's at 1 in OCG, so oh well. Yeah, and we have Pot of Prosperity here. You can either play Pot of Prosperity or Pot of Extravagance. I think I chose Prosperity just to dig through my deck for consistency rate. I like to be able to find a card I want rather than drawing 2 random cards. That might be bad. On top of that, I like to control what I want to banish in my extra deck, because while we don't really use our extra deck, it is another way for us to generate resource or yeah, to generate card advantage through either Herald or through Entis. And so you don't want to like play Extravagance and banish like all 3 Heralds, you know, because it's got to be the first thing that you play. Extravagance's main weakness is it has to be the first card you play that turn, and if you happen to banish all 3 Heralds, then you're gonna have a bad day. So Prosperity is more flexible, and it's more consistent in the terms of filtering what card you want. Most of the time you'll do 3. If you're in deep trouble, then you might go for 6 to try to dig further down into your deck to try to find something. But yeah, I definitely think 2 Prosperity is good enough. Yeah, and then you got Ritual Sanctuary. I already kind of spoke about what it does for the deck. There's not much else to say about that. Then you got basically one of each of the mirrors. Kaleidoscope's the one that you're going to be playing 2 of. So you used to play 2 cycle and 2 Kaleidoscope, and then maybe 1 mirror, or you sometimes play 3-3. Not really necessary. I would do more cycle or maybe more mirror if I was playing Shrit, because I'm not playing Shrit in the deck. That's why don't need that many mirrors. If you are playing Shrit, then it makes summoning Trishula a lot easier, and it does make summoning Valk a lot easier. So if you do play Shrit, then that is an option. You could play 1 Shrit in the deck just because. Just throw it in there just to have a way to potentially cycle back Unicorn twice. Or sorry, Trishula twice with the cycle. Because most of the time when you summon Trishula and it dies, it's almost impossible to bring it back out unless you go Unicorn, bring this back to your hand, and somehow get the mirror back. Then you can Trish again, but for the most part, it's almost impossible in this deck to get a second Trishula out. Unless you have, like, you know, Brionac and Colossus in your hand and you activate Cycle, but it's a 3-for-1. I don't know if you want to do that unless you're just loaded with resources during that stage of the game. I don't know, but maybe 1 Shrit might be good to add in the deck. This is the ritual spell for the White Knight here. You only need 1 copy. It's searchable. You can either search it with the Ritual Sanctuary or you can search it with Ecclesia. Remember, Ecclesia can search a card from the deck, any Dogmatika card, or from the I think, yeah, any Dogmatika card you can add from the deck to your hand. So this is Dogmatika, so you can do that. You can't search for Nadir because the Nadir is technically not a Dogmatika card. But Nadir can search from the graveyard or add something back from the graveyard too if you needed to. So just overall flexible card. I rarely do that. I rarely add something from the graveyard back to hand, but it is there for that. Next off, this deck is weak 2 Maxi, weak 2 Ash Blossom, so you definitely need a way to combat that. So Call by the Graves for sure. Which is a great card to play 2 of. In the TCG, it's only 1, but I definitely think you should play 2. It also acts as a DD Crow, so great card overall. Next off, this is just an optional card. You can play 1 or 0. I opt to play 2. I've been liking 2. It's been helping us get rid of big threats, and it also helps us keep Unicorn alive since we're not really playing we're not playing whatchamacallit, Valk. Since we're not playing Valk, we can't really protect a Unicorn on board that easily. So by having this on board plus the Unicorn, if someone is able to summon a creature bigger than Unicorn and tries to run it over, you just activate this and just like usually 2-for-1 them. And that's usually a good deal there. So 2-for-1 them, and you can get to protect your Unicorn. So pretty good card for this deck. You don't really care about the claws here. You never special summon from the extra deck for this deck anyways. Very rare. So it's not very detrimental for this deck. So good card overall. Next off, Vanity. Vanity was made famous with this deck and got it banned essentially in the TCG. Most of the time people summon Unicorn, flip a Vanity in the mirror match or something like that, or in, you know, whatever. You don't have an out to Vanity, you just lose there. So same idea is like sometimes you can just summon Unicorn, have this set. If they try to special summon something or something that can run over Unicorn, you flip this and it's basically game over. So kind of an unfair card. In that sense, you can also play, I guess, Imperial Order if you wanted to. But I didn't want to play Imperial Order because I do have a lot of spells myself, so don't want to lock myself out of it as much. You could lock the game down if you have a big enough board. You can flip over Imperial Order and Vanities maybe. Lock your opponent out from doing anything, but that is a soft lock right there, so yeah. Let's go and move on to extra deck. Extra deck, you just got 3 Entis. In other builds you could play 2, but I think here, because we don't really have many utility for our extra deck, plus we're playing Prosperity and stuff like that, I think the triple of her is pretty good. Good answer. This is optional. Frostful Warrior. I namely use this to just Kaleidoscope out a Briggernack, and the option is there to pop a card if you need to. Well, at least a monster card at least. But yeah, it's not super duper useful, but it is there. Titanic Clad is really good with this right here. So if you activate Calamity, you usually want to ditch a Titanic Clad to summon out the White Knight. So that's kind of like the holy triangle right there of those 3 cards: the Titanic Clad plus the Dogmatika into the White Knight. Otherwise, you can always just ditch him with Nadir, or you can ditch him with the Maximus. Whatever you need to do, it's a good card to have in the deck. Good advantage engine there. Next off, this is just kind of the reason why I'm playing him. It could be anything. It could be any level 12 that you want. The best level 12 to probably play is the tech guy, I think. Let me look it up real quick. I forgot the name of the card. Or Geo something, right? This one here. Geo Math Mech. So that's the best 12 you could possibly play. You could also play this if you're the Shooting Star Quasar, if you're gonna go for the combo, the Insector Combo. And so the Insector Combo, if you don't know, is where you summon ditch a level 12. So you namely ditch like a Quasar, and then you go you would ditch the Quasar with Kaleidoscope, summon 2 Briggernack, and then overlay them for the Insector Beetle, Exa Beetle, and you detach the Quasar. When Quasar gets sent from the field to the grave, it doesn't matter where, then you can special summon a Shooting Star Dragon. So that's the combo that you could play in this deck. I opted not to play it because it rarely happens. It's not that consistent, and I guess I'd rather have other extra deck space opened up for other stuff. So yeah, I don't think it's necessary to play the Quasar. You can if you want to. I'm opting just to play the Master Dragon Knights right now, just because it's a 5,000 attack point monster that you can use with punishment, and that will kill practically everything that is under the sun. The Geo, I say, is one of the better ones because you can actually synchro summon into this if you need to. It's level 12, so you would need like a Herald maybe. If your Herald is level 6, you can use a Herald plus like a Briggernack on the board to synchro summon into it. And it's a good card in the sense that it becomes unaffected by every card in the game except for other Math Mech cards, but no one's playing a Math Mech deck. So effectively, this card is unaffected by other cards in the game. So that is another option to play, but it is an Ultra. I'm debating on wanting to spend my Ultra points on making this at all. Right now I opted not to. A more budget-friendly version, if you need something to synchro into, it would be this B swap thingy. It's just a 3k beater with a piercing effect. We don't play any insects. I guess you could technically combo this thing off with a Max C. If you had Max C in the graveyard, I guess you can banish the Max C. You can then I guess force your opponent to lose, like, was it 500 attack points for each banish? So if you had like triple Max C in the graveyard and you had this thing on the board, you can make all of them lose 1500 attack points. I don't know how often that situation would come up, honestly. That now that I think about it, it is an option. You can definitely play this as a budget version of this. But the main appeal of this is that you can synchro summon it. It does piercing damage. That's just the main point. And I guess if somehow this thing dies, you can special summon Maxi from the banish zone, I guess. I don't see what the use of that is. I guess if you ever summon the Maxi, you can use it as tribute material. But yeah, so your three main, or I guess four main options would be Quasar if you're going to go for the Insector Combo. These two as just generic synchros that you can actually synchro into, or you can just pick a big beater, 5-headed God Dragon, Dragon Master Knight as a 5k card, and then pitch that and for the punishment. If you're not playing punishment, then I would probably go with one of these instead. If you are playing punishment, then I guess this is probably one of the better options. Yeah. Next off, you got 3 heralds. Overall, you need 3 heralds. If you could play more than 3 heralds, you would, but yeah, you're limited to 3, so there you go. This is really good in the deck to combo off with Maximus. If you can every turn ditch these two, you can almost have an infinite once per turn Rhoda with Maximus on the board. So what I mean by that is, like, if you have a herald, or if you have a herald in your extra deck or in a graveyard, ideally in your extra deck, you can summon Maximus, pitch these two, and then activate Omega and put back Omega and the herald. So every turn that they don't get rid of Maximus, you can use these two combo cards to always get a ritual card of any kind that you want. So yeah, it turns Maximus to a machine. So a well-oiled machine right here is the Cyframe Omega and the Herald. Other times you can just ditch him if you need to put any of these back to reuse it. Then you can ditch him and then just recycle anything that you need. Here we have Leo. Leo can be anything. Leo usually is gonna be let me check here. Level 10s. Leo can be this or a shooting star dragon if you do the combo. If you don't do the combo, Leo is I think the best level 10 that you can bring out under the current list of cards we have. I guess you can do Rudy Rose, but I don't think Rudy Rose is that great. You obviously don't want to banish your graveyard. And we aren't playing the regular Black Rose Dragon, so I don't think Rudy Rose is that great. It is a 32 beater, so it's slightly stronger than Leo, but if we get Baroness in the game, then Baroness, the Fleur Baroness level 10 is going to be the best level 10 synchro monster you can play. But as of right now, we only got Leo as one of the better ones. Really generic. You know, can't be targeted. Your opponent kind of has to either run it over or deal with it in main phase 2, which is kind of nice. But you rarely summon this thing out. If you get a chance to, you can. But yeah, that you won't really summon this. But other than that, Star Eater. I think Star Eater is the second best one. I think your other option is the Trishula, the Ice Barrier one. You could play this one instead of Star Eater. I'm more on a budget, so I crafted a Star Eater instead. you don't ever rarely summon this out. But basically, these are just kind of like your targets for Dogmatika, punishment, or usually targets for a kaleidoscope if you are trying to bring out a combination of, a Brionac and a Unicorn, or maybe a Colossus with a Trishula, or yeah, I guess that's all you can really do, is those combinations. The Trishula for 12 with Colossus, double Brionac for 12, Brionac and Unicorn for 10. For 11, I don't know if I have anything that goes into 11. Now that I think about it, I think the 11 one might be the worst slot. I think I might take out the 11 actually. I might put in like a 7. I think a level 7 or a level 9 might be better. I don't think we have any form of combination to go into 11. I think when you played, if you played Valk, then Star Eater is necessary, because then you can go Valk plus Colossus. That would be 11 for Kaleidoscope. But in my current build, I didn't think about it, but my current build, I don't think there's a way to get into 11. Yeah. So, yeah. Now that I'm making this video right now, I think Star Eater is not necessary, because we have no way of getting into 11. I think. So I think a 9 or level 7 is going to be your next best shot. So I might look for a cheap 9. So because 9 will let you bring Colossus and Brionac out. But a 7 will let you bring these two out. I think a 7 might be better. The Pegasus thing. I remember if Pegasus is in here. Give me 1 second. Sorry about this guy. Like, kind of in the middle of it. Yeah. You can make a Pegasus. I think a Pegasus might be a better fit in this deck. And also, like, if something gets killed, you can also bounce something back, which is nice. Because now that I'm looking at my deck, I don't think there's any way to bring out a level, a combination of a 11 type. So yeah, might do this for level 9. I think you could go for the other Ice Barrier Trishula. It would be your best target. This one right here, if you decide to go for a level 9 will allow you to bring out Colossus and Brionac, but I think that's a rare case. I don't think you really do that often. But yeah, that's an option there. If you need more budgetary, then you can do a Mistworm. I think that's the best one. Mistworm. This is just a beater, so I guess you can technically go for the Leo Drake here. I think Vermilion's another decent one you can go for if you want to go for a level 9. I think this thing too is pretty decent if I recall. Yeah. So the crocodile thingy here can also be decent. So yeah, you have a couple. If you wanted to play that, you could do that. My bad here, as I kind of remember that. Could bring that out. Anyways, next off, another good card to pitch with the deck would be pitch it with the Maximus, pitch it with Nadir, or pitch it with Punishment would be totally awesome. So why not? You can play it. Half your deck is water types, so you can always bring back any of the water monsters you need. Pretty good. Here is a card that I think is super necessary for the deck. If you, on first glance, it doesn't look like it does much for the deck, but it does a lot for the deck. So this is namely for when you summon out Herald, or I guess an egg or something, and it gets like Effect Veiler or Impermanence. Then if you have a Dogmatika Ecclesia in hand, what you would do is you can send this to the graveyard, summon out an Amirage, special summon the Ecclesia from hand, because now you have an extra deck monster. So your normal summon is not completely wasted. So you go into a Herald, into Amirage, into Ecclesia, special summon her. You can search for a Maximus, and then you can tribute the Amirage. So the Amirage has an effect where it can tribute itself. You can just tribute it, target Ecclesia, doesn't really matter. Then you can banish the Amirage, and then summon the Maximus, and you still technically have a Herald effect. Then you activate Maximus, ditch a Herald, ditch whatever, and basically continue your play from there. So that's the main reason why you would play Amirage. Like, on first glance, you wouldn't see that, but it is there. Another card that you can do if you need, you could also play the blocker guy. What's his name? Junk or Secure Gardener, I think. If you wanted to, you could play this version too. You can add a Secure Gardener. You can send Amirage to the grave, summon out the Secure Gardener if you needed the body. Then you can also do that. But I think for the most part, like you're not gonna need a Secure Gardener body. This thing doesn't do anything, I think. What's with it? Yeah, I have no idea why you would need it. It's kind of at least in my opinion, it's kind of a waste of an extra deck space. So I wouldn't, in my personal opinion, I don't think you need it, because Amirage can send itself to the graveyard, so that's already good enough. You don't need to manually link it away for another body, because this body doesn't do anything for the deck at all, besides being a 1,000-point attacker. But you could, it's optional. And the last card is kind of a flex spot. This is just to blow up any spell cards. You can also play the Nightmare Cerebus. You can play the Familiar. I can't spell right now. Or maybe reset this to Charmer. Sorry. You can play Charmer Lina. What she's used for is she's used to, if you play against a mirror match or something, you can bring back someone else's Herald. You can bring back someone else's Ecclesia if you wanted to. And if she dies, she searches for your Ecclesia. She searches for, I think, any light type with 1500 defense or less. So she searches for your Diviner also. So she does have her, I guess, her purposes there. So if you ever needed that, you could play her. I think Celine's another good card, but she's an Ultra, and I don't think she's that. You ever get a chance to bring her out as often. Celine. Another good flexible card. Like I mentioned, the Nightmare cards. You can play Cerebus. You can play Unicore. Yeah, those are all great options for your flex. Or if you want to play more levels, you can play more value levels. Yeah, this deck is basically really open to interpretation and of what you think is most important. There's no correct build for this deck. It's a very non-linear deck. Just tune it to your play style. I think you'll have fun with the deck. I unfortunately don't recommend the deck as much because it's very expensive to make, and a lot of the cards are not able to transition into other decks as well. The Herald you can maybe transition to other decks, but the good thing is at least the Nekroz monsters are all supers for the most part, so they aren't too costly to make. But the Ultras, you want to avoid like having a bunch of Entis and Diviner if you're not going to play another Ritual deck. That's kind of a wasted investment. But it is, for the most part, mostly a super deck, so that's the good thing, is a lot of these cards are super, so supers are a lot easier to get in the game than Ultras are. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. I guess the other engine here is, I guess I'm gonna digress a little bit more here, but the Dogmatika engine's mostly super, also splashable in other decks like Shadow, splashable and Invoke. So there are cards that can be transitioned to other deck in case you get bored of this deck or it doesn't work for you. They can transition to those decks. But I would say this deck is maybe a tier 2, maybe a tier 3 sort of deck. It's fun. It's just combo-y and it's flashy, but it's got a lot of inherent weak points to the deck. So just be careful if you are trying to pilot this deck. Anyways, that's it. See you guys next time. Okay.